Okay, Wax Lube 101. Before we get into this, just want to thank everybody for the patience and everything as we went through the tornado cleanup and all that. Also, and I will be linking in the description on this video, the Patreon account and also the PayPal account. Anything that we get in this month or next month combined will be going toward the tornado cleanup here in Cookeville in Tennessee. Most of y'all know the details on that, but that's where anything that comes in on our channels will be going this month. So just a little incentive there. Hopefully I've got enough coffee to get through this one. So I just plugged up the lube heater. I guess before we get into the type of lubes, we'll go over the lubricizer and heater real quick. The heater here, this is just the basic Lyman set under base heater, heating element, no on off switch, plug it up, element gets hot, unplug it. One thing you have to watch when we get into our lubes here in a minute, temperature is something you do really want to watch. You don't want to get it too hot on these harder lubes. Well, let's just go through types of lubes real quick. Basically, when I started out as a kid, this is the lubricizer I started out on back in the 1970s. Not that I'm that old, I was just really young when I started. But pretty much your bullet lube was a 50-50 mix of beeswax and Alox. Soft lube, no heater required. All our lubing was done at, sorry about the flashy light here. All of our lubing was done at room temperature. The liquid Alox was, the Alox was soft enough, waxy enough. It was more like, well, as I said, it's beeswax and Alox. So it would flow through with the pressure. I guess I can take the camera down here just to run through how this thing operates. Sorry about the mess on the table. You have basically a threaded screw here with a plunger. The more you tighten this down, the more pressure it puts on the wax. It sends the wax down through the unit, through the front, and is activated whenever you, and this will only release the wax if there's a bullet in it. Otherwise it will not push the plunger down far enough to get by the holes. We'll get into more of that in our changeovers and other video. But anyhow, to get the lube from here down through the tube, around through, and be pressurized to come out onto the bullets, the Alox was soft enough, it did not need to be heated. I don't use this. Matter of fact, I hate this stuff. Let's see if I've got another. But this is the Molly lube. Works from 10 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That means it's not supposed to melt off your bullets till it hits to 130 degrees. But that's not the case with this. I don't like the Molly. It's sticky. It's a softer lube, kind of like the old Alox. As you can see, it's just a soft, waxy lube. It's sticky and it stinks to high heaven. It's kind of like a cross between tar and axle grease. So anyway, that type of lube does not need a heater. I am trying to watch my heat. Let me double check this thing. Don't want to get to talking and get her too hot. Okay, so still good. So when you get into your hard lubes, such as the Blue Angel, which this is the Thompson's Blue Angel, and you can see the run marks where I use it to. This is a stick I use for everything from fluxing my lead pot to lubing my molds. But as you can see, something harder. Well, it's hard, like pure paraffin candle wax hard. So this is more like a hard candle wax. This takes about, they say, 115 degrees to melt. So that means you've got to get the lube itself temperature up to 115 degrees for it to be soft enough to run through and to fill in the grooves. Most of your hard lubes like that, whether it's the Blue Angel or the Orange Magic, and I'm not sure which of either they even still make. Only would describe a hard lube, you can tell. Shiny, hard. If it's so hard like plastic, you know it's going to take some temperature to heat. So, whatever it's called, a hard lube is going to have some heat. That heat will generally be marked on different packaging for the lubes. I don't worry about temperature, any specific temperature. Once I get it hot enough to where it starts flowing, I turn the heat off, unplug the the heating pad, which I'm going to unplug now because the pad's hot, but that will still transfer heat. So I'm just trying to get the lube in this warm. Basically, that's all we're waiting on right now. In the meantime, we will cover a few of the lubes and properties. So, what I've gone to is Carnauba Red, about 10 sticks of this, 2 5-packs. Get some out here, but it says 2,700 feet per second. This is the stuff that I ran on straight wheel weight bullets. Now, I did thermocycle the bullets, but they were straight wheel weights, nothing else mixed in. No gas check, just the red Carnauba. And I was driving up to 3,000 feet per second out of a 30-06. I was running them at 2,700 feet per second out of a 30-30. This one I have cut on a little bit. Not sure why. I'm sure I used it to lube something. But as you can see, this has a slight sticky feel to it, but it's not like a sticky. It's just slightly tacky. This is a slightly softer lube. And as you can see, you can indent. And for everybody wondering what the hole is, that is for the lubricizer. As I said, that screw rod that goes down through there, when you put this in your lubricizer, your sticks come in solid or hollow. This goes down over the screw into here, and then the plunger on top simply pushes it down. Anyway, the red Carnauba, I have basically just gone to, and you'll see here when we get to molding some bullets, because there's a slight reservoir in here. Once you get lube in there, it's going to stay in there until you get all this new lube in here, pushing all the old lube out. You're going to have old lube on your bullets. It does not take a whole lot of lube to lube a bullet. So one stick like this, depending on the bullet, 500, 1,000. I've gone 1,200 bullets on a single stick, depending on the size of your lube grooves, the diameter of your bullets, that kind of things. Check this before we... That's almost there. So, anyway, let me just go ahead and grab a cider die. Both of these are linemen's, but the RCBS works the same way. So we'll just show you here. This is your sizer and lube dye. This, as you can see, is the 313. This is for our 32s, 3220s. Those sorts. We have even put a few of these through some British rifles and some AKs. Anyway, these are your lube ports. As this sits in here, basically this is just a hollow sleeve. This sits down in, leaving a thin space between this wall and the wall of your sizer die. When you set a bullet in here, the top punch comes down, pushes the bullet down, as this rod will come out the bottom. As that does, this rod moves out of the way and opens these ports, letting your bullet lube, which is under pressure from the plunger, into the ports, into the lube grooves. And then when you pull up on the handle, this rod, let me get a little better picture here. And that pushes it down. So then this, all this ledge does, catches your rod. That pushes up on the base of this rod, pushing the bullet back out the top. That's also how you adjust your depth. The farther you let this go down, the deeper it's going to go into here. The farther up on the bullet, your lube is going to come, which we will see in a minute. So anyway, as you see, there are ports all the way around. This is all the way around. So, and you can tell on this one maybe, we have a little orange magic in this side. That looks like orange magic. There's where a little blue angel was mixed in. So, because the lube's in different places as we try to run it through, that's where we come out with rainbow color bullets, until all the old lube is pushed out and the new lube takes its place. We're almost at temperature. Before the advent of lube heaters that actually just mount to the base, a lot of people would just use a hairdryer. Stick a hairdryer around it, heat it up that way. It works. Let's see here, what was I thinking before I get into the bullet side? Lube, yeah. Anyway, so instead of using basically, we just used whatever we had, whether it was Blue Angel, Orange Magic, all good pistol lubes. Once I got into lubing and molding the rifle bullets for friends, instead of having different lubes for different calibers, we're just basically using one lube for rifle and pistol. I figure why change to a pistol lube when a rifle lube designed for 2,800 feet per second pretty much works just as well. So, and you don't want to over tension your plunger just till you can feel resistance. This is one of those, once you get a practiced hand at it, trial and error. If you're not getting enough lube and you know you're up to temperature, which I'll get into, softened and melted. You don't want your lube hot enough that it's actually melted, like melted, runny melted. Then it starts making a mess. You want it just soft enough to where it will fill in the grooves. and flow smoothly. Now, another thing, which I'm sure we'll see right here, I'll use this as an example. You can see there's a little bit of lube in the front. Again, behind the camera and in front of the camera. Try to get this where it'll show up. But you will tend, since this feeds from the back, you will get lube through the back and not in the front. Now, unless you're OCD like me, you don't have to have a perfect ring of lube all the way around. The lube will distribute itself upon firing. This isn't one of those, you know, the more the merrier. Got to have lots and lots of lube to make it slick. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way, and in fact, you don't even need all 3 lube rings, lube grooves, filled when you're using a high temp lube. Those are basically made for hot rod loads back in the day when all you had was an Alox or a beeswax or a straight paraffin lube. Okay, so apparently we're up to temperature. Let's start on our sinkers, since this is a YouTube video. What you want to look for in your sinker. And this is the 148 grain flat base. This is the RCBS design. Button end. Full wad cutter sinker. So, and with any sinker, what you want to look for is good sharp grooves. Now these are slightly radiused. I know camera's crap. Too much light also in the glare, but if you can see here, the lube grooves, these aren't just flat square. These edges are radiused. However, it's still a crisp line. In other words, they're not rounded over. In real life, you could see the tail bevels, and when you mold your own, you will see that. Basically, just to put it in a nutshell, you're looking for good sharp corners, everything even. That is if you haven't already gone through and sorted, which we will get into in the actual sinker molding video. So everyone watch for the sinker molding video coming up soon. So anyway, so this thing doesn't last the next 2 hours. Let's get started. So we basically put it in. We've got tension on our lube. Push down, pull up. There's a teeny tiny little spot that didn't get lube in it. Just a teeny spot. But here's what I was going to show you. Here's a little orange magic. A little bit of leftover from the Blue Angel. And here's where our red carnauba is starting to fill the voids. In the end. So as long as you're getting a good flow, then basically keep running. And what I say, as long as you're getting a good flow, turn the heat off. If you stop getting a good flow, then put the heat back on. A lot of people are like, well, I'll just leave the heat on, let it run. Like I said, this is cast iron. Any of your, whether you're using the Lubramatic, the Lubricizer, the RCBS, the Lyman, the Thompson, they're all going to be cast. They're going to hold heat for a long time. Once you get it up to temperature, you're probably going to run out of bullets before it gets cooled off. Another thing I wanted to show, which will be in the casting video, on your bases where you cut your sprue. This looks worse than it is, but If your sprue is cold, or excuse me, your sprue plate is cold, your lead's a little cold, and your molds aren't up to temp, generally when you cut the sprue, this will be slightly rounded up. This was a hot mix. This is also one of my proprietary mixes. And when you cut the sprue, they tend to snap at the pore hole. So this one's slightly indented, and you can see it's a little broken and grainy. Again, we'll get into that later. But if you get one that's rounded up, that you're going to sort through in your sorting if you're going for pristine bullets for majorly par accuracy. Most people, they'll sort into different grades. These are all going to be plinkers. I don't see a need to sort out the best of the best for, grade 1, grade 2 for practice rounds, grade 3 for whatever. You can do that if you want. I do that when I'm shooting for accuracy. These are all going to be ran by a bunch of kids. So to get to the point, sometimes the bullet, especially if you're using the Lyman, now this is my old RCBS sizer luber die. They have generally a flatter base. But if you get a little bit of rock, simply, when you pull your handle down, start to guide it, and you can run it. Now, again, apologies for the flashing light, but we're starting to get just a little void right here. You can tell, especially when you're feeling it, when you're doing this for yourself, if the lube is soft. If the lube is soft and you're getting voids, that means you're running out of pressure on your plunger. Simply put a little more pressure on and back to running. And again, this one shows a little better. Nice, sharp, crisp angles. Also, one thing you want to look for. Now this, as you can see the line here, this is where the two mold halves come together. You're going to have that in pretty much every bullet. The severity of it, well, there are several conditions on that. But a lot of times, if your molds aren't completely closed, you'll get basically will be where it leaks between the mold halves, and you'll get like a little leaf or rise up. Generally with those, that's why I keep a utility knife here. Whack it off, throw it in, lube it up. But those two halves are going to be normal because you're using two halves of your mold. The severity, again, that's however you want to sort them. But that's in your sorting and grading. And we've got probably, this is a partial of what we molded last time. Lots of shadows, but maybe 250 in this bowl. Got probably another 150. I think altogether in this batch, we ended up with 400, maybe 450. I didn't count them. Again, these are just for the kids. So, and I guess one of the last things here, you can feel when you go to pull this down, especially on like these wood cutters per se, the ridges. If your bullet is extremely oversized, now you'll see here, these edges are really bright and shiny. That's because hopefully we can see this is sleeving, but when you're sizing it, you're basically running it down a sleeve, which is squeezing this bullet down to the proper size. This one actually has to be, or happens to be, actual 357. Most lead bullets, you want 1/1000th over. For one, This is what I've had since I was 5 years old. It was 42 years ago. We had a 357 sizer die. As I said, I've been using this since I was 5 years old, and I'm 47. That tells you how long these things last. Anyway, I've actually had these. Again, this is going to be more into the molding and the lead temp and all that. But I've actually had these completely sleeved so much that the lube grooves basically get squeezed completely out. In other words, all you have is just one smooth lead shank here. That tells you your bullet is oversized. The main thing that's going to cause your bullets to be that oversized is lead temp, mold temp, and what your lead content is. Different alloys. Pure lead, you're probably not going to have to worry about. You mold it hot enough to fill out the molds, it's going to shrink at a certain rate. You mold it really hot to where it starts frosting, it's still going to shrink at a certain rate. All your bullets are going to come out the mold pretty much about the same. Certain alloys you have to run hotter. For example, on this alloy that I've been using, I run it pretty much as hot as I can run it. When it cools, it's going to shrink more than what regular lead will. Again, that's a alloy characteristic. But again, we will get into that later. But I was just wanting to let you know it's something to watch out for. I've actually had batches of bullets that I've just, basically after a dozen or 2 dozen of them, I've just simply thrown back in the pot, went back and remelted and started from scratch, because the lube grooves were basically just getting completely squeezed up and gone. It was resizing the bullet that much. So that's just something to watch out for. Again, let's see what we've got in the cup here. Just for our examples. And one set of molds I had, you don't hold one at a time, it was actually a mold problem. One side of the bullet would sleeve, and it was on this particular 200 grain mold, and the other side wouldn't. Again, here's the, and as you can see on this, there is no halves line, or there is, but it's very, very faint. That tells me the mold was at the right temperature, the lead was at the right temperature, sprue plate was good. As you can see, we've got a clean base cut. There's a little bit of a scratch there, but nothing is going to affect accuracy. Again, this was right mold temp, right sprue plate temp, and right mix temp on the pour. There's a, here we go, semi-wad cutter. So these are my 44 semi-wad cutters. Again, a RCBS mold. But as you can see, now this is a mold problem. I have to get in and clean my molds out. I'm going to probably have to do some cut work to them. But that one side of the mold does not fill out. That is not a temperature problem, mold temperature problem, alloy problem, not enough tin problem or anything. That is a mold problem. However, everything else other than just the front shoulder ring, everything else on the bullet, crisp, clean, squared off. I do not have any of the 45s here to show the bevel base, but if it's supposed to be a bevel base, make sure your bevels are clean, straight, and square, or square edges, but you get the point. So, that's a few things to look for in your bullets. Again, sort these before you start. Around one more of these. And there you can see we are running out of lube in the front. When you start getting that, a lot of people will just simply turn it around, run it again, just to fill in that particular bullet. Throw a little more pressure to it. Again, the more lube you take out, every bullet you do takes a certain amount of lube out. My 44s, for example, I get 3, maybe 4, and I have to tension the lube again. These 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, and that will take enough lube out to take the tension off. Simply throw a little more pressure to it and keep running. Okay, so that's about all I can think of to ramble on these for now. Any questions, put them in the comments. Again, the Patreon and the PayPal will be in the comment section, or excuse me, the description section. So again, anything from this month or next month, it will all be going to the tornado cleanup. And again, I want to thank everyone for waiting on us to get back on the video line, since we have been doing all the cleanup work and everything. And I really want to thank everyone that has helped in it. People from not only across the state, but from other states across the country. I want to thank every single one of you. Those of you that have basically helped in the support. Don't think you haven't done as much as the ones that have actually been boots on the ground, physical labor. We couldn't have done it without your help either. Still have a long way to go, but the emergency is over. Now the long haul begins. But I want to thank each and every one of you for all your help and support. And till next time,